And welcome to the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications, a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. And in great fashion, and as it's April now, we will ask people again how the weather is where they are. So, Sweyn, how are you, and how's the weather where you are?
It's all fine. Spring has sprung. All the snow from last week has disappeared. We're all enjoying some slightly warm weather.
Excellent to hear. And here in the west of Ireland, I've got blue skies and some cloud, but sunny definitely. I've been out earlier and it was lovely. Still cold enough, but definitely not raining at the moment, which is always a bonus. And our guest today is Ben Haddock. Ben, how are you? Where are you? And how's the weather where you are?
Hi, Pauline. I'm very good, thanks. The weather is a little bit chilly here. I'm based in Sutton Coldfield in the West Midlands, but the sun is out and shining, so it's looking like it's quite a nice day to come.
Excellent. That's good to hear. So we'll be hearing from Ben again in a few minutes. But first, we'll start with the things that we're kind of marking or celebrating around this time. And Monday, the 12th of April, is or was International Day of Human Space Flight. In 1961, this was the day that Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first person to orbit Earth in Vostok 1. And the UN has observes this day now as Human Spaceflight Day, which was declared on the 7th of April in 2011. This day was declared to be the International Day of Human Spaceflight to celebrate each year at the international level the beginning of the space era for mankind, reaffirming the important contribution of space science and technology in achieving sustainable development goals and increasing the well-being of states and peoples, as well as ensuring the realization of their aspiration to maintain outer space for peaceful purposes. I like this one, especially because I'm a big West Wing fan, and in the West Wing, they have they had an episode where somebody asked, why you're going to wherever they were going to, and it was kind of because it's there, because we can, exploration. So, otherwise, it probably would pass me by. And either of you, big on human space flight?
Well, no, I have no ambitions to do anything of the sort. I do remember just some of the later moon landings when I was a little boy, but that's about it.
And Ben, are you in space?
I'm fascinated by the idea of space and space travel. I was absolutely amazed by the Mars landing last month and everything that involves and all the tech behind it, and the little helicopter that they're going to launch off soon and explore the local mountains. So I personally can't get enough of it.
That's good to know. Okay, we have another couple of celebrations. On Wednesday, the 14th of April, 2003, the Human Genome Project was completed with 99% of the human genome sequenced to an accuracy of 99.99%, which sounds pretty close to me. The Human Genome Project was the international collaborative research program whose goal was the complete mapping and understanding of all the genes of human beings, and all our genes together are known as our genome. So it's obviously an important thing in life and biology and so on. Again, nothing that I've studied that much. Did biology at school, but not a big fan otherwise. Either of you have a view on the Human Genome Project?
Just an amazing piece of scientific research, I think, and everything that's kind of led from it, really. It blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's very much a complete revolution, isn't it, in some fields, some biological studies, including probably virology. So we're probably quite lucky that that's been done by now.
Yeah, well, very relevant. And our last thing that we're marking before we get to talk to Ben is on the 23rd of April, we understand that IFLA is running a webinar on public access, supporting meaningful digital inclusion for underserved communities. And again, we're talking about public libraries is one of our favorite topics. And the blurb for the event says the public access in libraries can be a powerful tool to bring online those most at risk of digital exclusion. An IFLA-led workshop at the WSIS Forum 2021 examines good practices, key considerations and ways to maximize impact, and explores the way public access solutions can be leveraged support meaningful digital inclusion for underserved or more vulnerable user groups. And this draws on experiences from different countries, from Singapore to Burundi to Lithuania, with supporting meaningful digital inclusion for women and older users. So that's the kind of project that we're interested in, to learn from other countries about what works well on digital inclusion. It's an hour-long seminar on 23rd of April, so recommended to sign up for that. And we press on now to welcoming our guest for today, Ben Haddock from Fab Lab in Sandwell. Ben works as an emerging technologies demonstrator for the Fab Lab, which is a makerspace in the middle of West Bromwich and part of Sandwell College. And Ben tells us that the Fab Lab is a place where anyone can come to make almost anything. You can print your own objects out of plastic with 3D printers, cut and engrave wood with laser cutters, or even make and print your own custom T-shirts or advertising. And in the last 12 months, the Fab Lab has also become a centre for new and emerging technologies. And Ben has been working with students, teachers, businesses, and the general public on lots of new and exciting projects. And these have involved things like using virtual reality headsets, designing customized voice assistants, or finding ways to make life easier with artificial intelligence. So Ben, you're very welcome to the Dr. Tech Show. And we're looking now on the Fab Lab's Instagram account, which shows lots of nice pictures of things that have been made. Ben, do you want to tell us a bit about some of those?
Yeah, by all means. Thanks for inviting me, Pauline. It's a pleasure to be here. So we like to put some bits and bobs up on our Instagram of some projects that we've been working on. So the most recent thing is a virtual reality project that we've been working on with a company called Body Swaps. And you might just be able to see sort of closely from the image that these are sort of headsets that you can kind of sort of put over your eyes and wear on your head. And it allows you to kind of sort of step into another world. So you can look around, and if I look to my left or right or up, I can see a completely different perspective, as if I've entered into a completely different environment. And we recently linked up with a company called Body Swaps, and the idea is that it sort of teaches students how to practice being in an interview environment or developing soft skills when they first kind of start in a job. So they're sat in an office and they're speaking to people, and the software is kind of asking them for their opinions, asking them to contribute, asking them to introduce themselves, and then there's a really clever little bit of artificial intelligence in there that sort of monitors what they say, analyzes their voice, and says, you spoke very clearly there, or you spoke a little bit too quickly, you spoke a little bit too slowly, you used quite a lot of filler words whilst you were introducing yourself, so you might want to focus on that in the future. Or you stuck very close to this topic that you were presenting on, and you used all these kind of keywords, and then it allows teachers to sort of listen back to kind of what the students have said and kind of give them feedback. But the idea of using kind of virtual reality to kind of sort of step into a different world and be in kind of sort of a safe space where you're not kind of embarrassed, you're not in front of kind of any other person, so you can really kind of practice and try out new ideas. So it's been a really interesting project, and we're really grateful to Body Swaps, the company that's let us kind of try this out and help them develop this software. So that's just one of the things that we've kind of been looking at inside the Fab Lab.
I like that idea very much. I know when we spoke previously, when you came to, we were both at a Sandwell Networkers group meeting, you talked about various uses of artificial intelligence and voice assistants. And that is something we've talked about on this show from time to time, because we want to encourage people to get online and use the great things that are out there to help them be more included and connected to each other. So we're really interested to hear stories about that. But if we can start, Ben, with if you can tell us a bit more about your story, how you got started in all this technical field, and your kind of how you got to this point. So how did you start off? What's your career trajectory?
So I've had quite well. I'm nearly approaching the big 3-0, but I've had quite a long and interesting career path to kind of get me to where I am at the moment. I suppose my interest in technology started probably when I was about 4 or 5 years old, when my dad first brought home, some of the first home PCs. So we'd be looking at, sort of like late 90s, where, it was a big white box and a big white screen. And, you could just about kind of see an image on there, or have a user interface with the mouse and click on it. And I remember being absolutely fascinated by this, piece of magic, to the point where I broke the computer about 5 times, because I was so fascinated by how it worked. And as I got older, I was, building things. I was building websites for my school year group for different clubs and departments within my school. When I was in sixth form, I made a sixth form website for my school, Plantsbrook in Sutton Coldfield. And I was just thrilled by this idea of using technology to, sort of solve problems, but also as a magical way to kind of connect people and, provide solutions to things. At university, I went on to study physics, because I was kind of fascinated not just by the idea of technology, but the wider idea of, sort of, well, what are we doing here? What are the stars? What are the atoms? What are the universe? And then for some reason, after I graduated, for some reason I didn't kind of go into tech or any of kind of those fields. I think I was more motivated at that point to sort of maybe see the world, and kind of help other people. And I'd been learning Spanish for several years. So I went off and lived in Madrid and Barcelona for a couple of years. And then I moved to Colombia in South America, and I taught English for a while. And I worked in education. So I worked in a secondary school in Hodge Hill. And then I worked as sort of an English teacher or lecturer out in Colombia, and whilst I was in Spain. And then I sort of moved into kind of giving kind of more sort of advice and support. After I'd spent time in Colombia, I was quite motivated to help people in, sort of difficult situations or impoverished situations. And I moved to kind of sort of giving sort of money advice and financial advice, to sort of people with debt issues in the UK, through an organisation called the Money Advice Trust in Birmingham.
I know it. Yeah.
Yeah. But throughout all of that, there was still this kind of sort of undercurrent of me trying to find ways to use kind of technology to kind of help people. And there I was, sort of speaking to people, through a contact centre, helping them with their finances. And we'd have maybe sort of targets that we had to meet in terms of, the number of people that we needed to kind of speak to in a day or in a week. But we had no way to kind of sort of measure these targets. So I went away and designed kind of a computer dashboard that would track all of these statistics. And that was purely just for myself, but it then suddenly kind of got rolled out across the whole organization. And there I was kind of adding these extra widgets to it and creating all of this stuff. And after a while, I kind of sort of realized that actually I was probably getting more excited about this dashboard, the power and the uses of this technology, than perhaps some of my kind of sort of day-to-day work. Not that I was, but at the same time, I was still very passionate about wanting to help other people. And so I stayed in kind of money advice for a while. And then kind of when kind of the pandemic hit, I was just about finishing a contract at the University of Bradford, where I was where I was kind of leading the money advice service within the university. And I suppose everything went dead for a while, didn't it? And there was kind of nothing available. There were no jobs. It was very silent. But I wanted a break, and I had planned to travel around South America and see lots of new places. But I got 3 weeks into Mexico before I had to very quickly fly back home. And then I had a few months where I was kind of just sort of reflecting and sort of probably relaxing after what had been a very kind of intense period working in money advice. And then this job came up at the Fab Lab, and I saw it, kind of out of interest. And it's, I suppose it kind of just sort of spoke to me on so many levels of every job I've been doing up until this point. I've been doing different things, but I've always been trying to find a way to kind of find technology and integrate it into that job and make things better or easier for the people that do that job, make those processes faster, make that experience better for the people that we serve, for the consumer. And it's just kind of spiraled from there, really. I mean, I started this role in November last year, and you may be familiar with the manager of the Fab Lab, a lady called Anne Scrimshaw.
Sure, yeah.
And it's really just been kind of a meeting of minds, so to say, in terms of kind of our ideas. But together we've been sort of coming up with all these fantastic technical ideas for what we can do within the Fab Lab, within the college, within different departments, within the local community, and for the public as well. So that's kind of my story and how I've kind of arrived here, really.
Wonderful. It's a great. I mean, I think you would have really liked. I don't know if you ever met John Popham, who started this show, but
Oh,
I
no.
think you what? No, but I think he would have really liked your story and felt that you know were a kindred spirit, because he was all about helping people, as we are, to use the online world to connect better and tell our stories better. And it sounds like you have those values as well. Do your family understand what you do, Ben?
They do, and I think in a way they kind of sort of felt like I've sort of probably slotted into something that kind of really just sort of fits and sort of fits and suits me completely and utterly 100%. I mean, the irony is that both my parents were going to the Fab Lab long before I even visited the Fab Lab myself. They'd been going to the Fab Lab, sort of several years ago, and they already knew Anne, and they already knew kind of all of the other people that kind of sort of worked in the Fab Lab. And sort of the Fab Lab community. So kind of when this kind of job came up, they sort of already knew about it, and they already knew about kind of what the Fab Lab was, but I'd never had the opportunity to kind of sort of go there or kind of experience it or see what was available, because I've been off in different places and traveling and stuff like that. So in a way I was kind of introduced to it by my family as well, because they're kind of a family of makers, or my family.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear that, because I did a presentation some years ago now for Ages List about makerspaces, and well, about smart cities, and makerspaces was part of that. And my findings at the time were that women and girls were not usually huge users of makerspaces, which disappointed me, because I think we have so much to offer in a more diverse community. So it's great to hear, and I know Anne's been leading the Fab Lab for ages, and great to hear that your own family, female, women in your own family have been active there as well. I think it's a really positive thing. So tell us a bit about the Fab Lab, how it's been working since lockdown, and some of the things you've been able to help people do.
By all means. So traditionally before lockdown, we had 2 afternoons a week where the public could come in and take advantage of the machines, take advantage of everything that the Fab Lab has. Outside of that time, we are focused on supporting the college, helping different departments to kind of sort of make things. So traditionally, we did a lot with maybe things like fashion students, to kind of sort of help them make kind of sort of t-shirts or clothing, or with engineering students to kind of help them maybe 3D print kind of objects that they might use kind of within their courses. And then kind of since lockdown kind of hit, everything kind of had to close. It was a very quiet period for Anne. And then kind of a new bid came along through the West Midlands Combined Authority to sort of become a demonstrator site for emerging technologies kind of within the West Midlands area, which the Fab Lab and Sandwell College successfully won. And through that, they were able to kind of sort of employ myself and become a centre for emerging technologies as well. So the Fab Lab has 2 kind of really nice sort of beautiful halves to it now, but it's all around sort of technology and digital, I suppose. Traditionally, you would come into the Fab Lab and you would take advantage of digital machines to help you make things, whether that's 3D printing something, cutting something out, cutting out some vinyl on a vinyl cutter, for example. But then with what we've kind of moved into now, and sort of more specifically with my role, is looking at kind of completely brand new technologies. So virtual reality, augmented reality, the Internet of Things, voice control and artificial intelligence, and kind of seeing how we can help people make things with those technologies, but also to introduce people to these technologies, because some of us will be familiar with them, some of us will know what they are, but not everyone will be, and they can seem quite big, they can seem quite overwhelming, and my role really is to kind of sort of show people what's possible with these technologies to begin with. Just give them a demonstration, almost like a magic trick. Look at what you can do with this, and then from there we kind of say, well, actually, we did this quite simply. This isn't complicated. You could make something kind of yourself. So a lot of our work since lockdown has been doing emerging technologies demonstrations. So we've been showing people what you can do with virtual reality. So for example, you can go and have a simulated job interview in virtual reality, or something like augmented reality. So augmented reality is if you've ever used something like Snapchat or Instagram and you've had some bunny ears on your face, or a floral crown. That's the idea of augmented reality, that you can sort of bring something digital into the real world. We've been trying to kind of make links with how we can sort of apply that within Sandwell College. So, for example, a lot of these technologies are quite new. They've maybe been used in some ways. So, for example, you can have your floral crown, you can have a face decoration. But what about if we took augmented reality and combined it with science or biology, for example? So suddenly we can give a student a mobile phone or a tablet, and they can see the whole human genome, in augmented reality, or a DNA structure, and they suddenly don't need a model for that. They can view that model wherever they are, whether they're at home, whether they're at school. Suddenly we can take maybe a 2D diagram of a cell, make it 3D, and throw it out to the size of the classroom, and then you can sort of almost wander around the classroom and kind of see different parts of it, and look at it from kind of different angles. So we're kind of sort of trying to make the connection between what already exists within the field of emerging technologies, and how that can be used in really hands-on, physical, real-life examples, to make things better and more interesting and more exciting, for different kind of subjects across the college. So there's a huge element of problem solving with what we do as well. The idea of kind of looking at two things and seeing how they might connect up. We've found some really interesting and exciting examples. I mean, I recently did a demonstration with our sports department, and I think beforehand we were a little bit apprehensive because we were thinking, how can we apply emerging technologies to sports? And then we thought, well, actually, I went away and looked at it, and I thought, well, actually, I think of all the 5 technologies that we're focusing on at the moment, we could find something for every single one of those, because you could potentially practice doing a sport in virtual reality. You could, have a little kind of Internet of Things tracker, which you wear as a wearable device whilst you're doing an activity that could track your heart rate, could track your vitals, and allow a coach to kind of then sort of feedback and kind of get stats on your performance. There's a lot of interesting things with artificial intelligence, for example, with sports, and how you can point a camera at say like a football pitch, and it will give automatic analysis of all of the players and kind of where they are and how much time they spent in a certain area of the pitch, kind of what their kind of average speed was. So we're finding some really interesting and exciting and creative examples with these technologies, and kind of applying them across the board within the college, to prepare our students, because these may be things that they're using in the future, and hopefully we can kind of give them a bit of an edge to kind of get them to start using those things now, before kind of they maybe become more kind of widespread in a few years' time.
And what about working with older people, Ben? How we a lot of our listeners and viewers would be say over 55 anyway, to kind of start with maybe the lowest older age. How do people who wouldn't have grown up with technology so much, how do they respond to these kind of technologies?
So it's quite interesting. One thing I didn't mention was, when I was probably about 11, for my Duke of Edinburgh's award, I volunteered and helped sort of over 55s how to use their computers. Sort of gave them advice, and sort of broke everything down for them, and explained how you can kind of do things. And it turned into a little kind of side business for a while, and I was quite popular. I built up quite a network of lots of people to teach kind of quite kind of quickly. So I think kind of sort of finding technology that can support, I suppose, people kind of over the age of 50, 55 is always something that I've kind of felt quite sort of keen and fond and passionate about. But I think there's lots of different uses for these technologies. I mean, we have all these words to describe them, and they can sound quite intimidating, but a lot of the time they can be quite simple. I mean, for example, my mum is over the age of 55, and she's okay with technology. She's not always the most confident user, but if you put a virtual reality headset on her, something that she's never used before, it's completely intuitive for her. You know, she didn't need to read an instruction manual. She didn't need anyone to kind of tell her how to use it. It was she instantly knew what she was doing. So these technologies are designed to be very. Some of them are very well developed now, very simple to use. I mean, something like a voice assistant in the home can be very helpful if you want to communicate with family members. You can have a voice assistant in your house and a voice assistant in somebody else's house, and you can use it as a way to kind of sort of communicate with other people. With kind of much older people, we're also looking at ways that you might be able to use assistive technology to kind of help people as well. So we've been doing a bit of research with some robotic arms that might be able to kind of sort of pick things up and do tasks for people, and they're quite easy to kind of set up and program. So we're trying to look at these technologies for everyone and kind of what you might be able to use them for. But we do like to solve problems. So if somebody comes to us and says, I've got this issue, or kind of how can these technologies kind of fit into my world, we're more than happy to sort of accept that challenge and go, yeah, well, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. And I think that's probably sort of both mine and Anne's one of our favourite aspects of our jobs, kind of brainstorming new ideas and seeing what we can do with them.
Yeah.
We don't just work within the college, we work for, we support the general public and community groups as well.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to see more of that. I mean, when we talked about voice assistants on this show before, it was about helping people in maybe living in care homes or nursing homes to access the technology that most of us take for granted, like sending emails or making a phone call or putting on a TV program or whatever. Is it fairly easy to program something to make you do that? What are the kind of Alexa skills that people might need to to be able to do that?
So if you want to do something with a voice assistant, it's not necessarily that hard to do. If you want to take something like an Amazon Alexa, you can go onto a website called Alexa Skills Blueprints. And it allows you to make your own sort of custom question and answer bots to answer questions for you. If you want to make something a little bit more kind of electronic, i.e., like a machine that will kind of sort of do something for you, that's going to take a little bit more work. But the idea of, in the last sort of probably 10 years, the maker community has really expanded into the world of electronics, and making your own electronics or making your own machines is actually a lot simpler than you might kind of expect.
All right, so Sweyn's got on the screen now blueprints.amazon.com, which goes through various blueprints: school schedule, custom Q&A, chore chart, whose turn, how many days, burns, roasting your friends and family, and then stuff at home, house guest, babysitter, pet sitter. So it looks like there are lots of things out there, and I think I'll certainly be looking into this again. I have heard of blueprints before, I just hadn't looked at it recently. So on the screen now, Sweyn's got how many days. Give Alexa an important date, and she'll count down the days to your event. I can see people playing with it to be able to work out how they might use it for. But my mother, who I often refer back to as kind of our typical user. This morning her smartphone reverted to the Microsoft Swift keypad, and she doesn't like that. And she didn't know how she got there, and I was trying to help her get back to it. So we worked it out in the end. But it's kind of doing things that don't scare older people or anybody really. I get scared too. I just feel more at ease with the kind of working out how to get back to her, how to make it do what I wanted to do, not what it wants to do. I do say to my mum and her kind of friends as well that to be skeptical about what you see online, and that you probably can't break, or I say this often in lots of different places, you probably can't break the internet, even though you've taken computers apart, Ben. I'm fairly sure you didn't break anything irrevocably. And sort of getting over that kind of worry and that fear is a big thing.
absolutely. And I think that's the one thing that we really try and kind of push at Fab Lab. We have and at least has this motto of, you can kind of sort of come into the Fab Lab, and we have a low floor and a high ceiling. So anyone can come in. We can support anyone to kind of make something, design something, for anyone at any level. But once you're in and once you've got started, you can go as far and as high as you want to. And I certainly kind of haven't found the ceiling yet. So
that's a really good motto. I like that.
yeah,
Low floor and a high ceiling. Yeah.
But I suppose the wonderful thing about Fab Lab is anyone can come in, anyone can have an idea, and we can support you with kind of ways or ideas or how you might be able to kind of sort of develop that for yourself, to kind of sort of take away that fear of trying something out and making something for yourself. Because I think particularly with technology, you kind of think, oh, I couldn't make that myself. I just definitely couldn't do that. But I mean, not even making stuff with technology, but maybe even like 3D printing something or making your own box or something, you think, oh, I couldn't do that. You need someone specialist to do that. You can do these things, and they're not hard. Sometimes you've got to commit a few hours to kind of learning how to do it. But we really try and kind of sort of take away that fear of, I couldn't possibly do that. That's way beyond me. And we sort of break it down into, step by step. This is how you could potentially do it, and let us kind of show you how to do it. But I think we all still kind of get that fear of, oh, can I do this? Is this possible? Have I kind of broken this thing? I mean, I still get that from time to time, but again, within the Fab Lab, we really try and sort of push ourselves and kind of, go for the next thing. So we've made something, but how can we make it better? How can we build on it? Let's look at this thing and go, that looks impossible, but let's try and do it. I mean, one of our aims within the Fab Lab is to try and build like a life-size sort of humanoid robot. And it seems it might seem a little bit harder and impossible at the moment, but we'll get there. We'll do it. We'll 3D print all the parts out, and we'll wire up all the electronics, and we will get there. So we kind of set ourselves these sort of stretch goals as well. But I think going back to what you said, Pauline, everyone feels a little bit out of their depth sometimes. Everyone feels a little bit scared by doing things. I certainly do when I kind of, make little electronics things sometimes. It's almost like going down into a little wormhole, and you're not sure when you're going to kind of sort of pop back up. But I just have to kind of sort of trust in the process, and eventually, even with stuff that I haven't done before, you get there.
Sweyn, what do you think? I'm sure you've got all kinds of ideas and thoughts of, oh, I could do this, I could do that.
I'm very poor at all this making stuff thing. I really am. I'd love to give it a go sometime, but I've not really done very much in this line at all. So it's all very exciting.
I mean, I think for any of your listeners or viewers who are interested in making things, there's a really fantastic website called Adafruit.
Adafruits.
Adafruit.com. So it's like Ada Lovelace fruits, and it's run by an American lady who is an MIT engineer, and she's really into kind of sort of getting people to kind of make things, but also getting kind of sort of women and minorities to kind of sort of make things as well. So there are all these kind of fantastic kind of things that she kind of encourages people to design and make. So things like wearable technologies, where you might kind of have, sort of an item of clothing with kind of lights built into it. But there's a huge, they sell lots of different technology that you can kind of build things with, but they've also got a very large section at the top on kind of sort of learning how to make things. So learning how to use electronics, or I think if you go to learn, just the next one along.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
It'll break everything down for you to first principles, show you how to make things, and then they've got all of these projects as well that you can make. So I saw one the other day about how you could make your own sort of electronic kind of butterfly wings that were kind of sort of life-sized, and sort of how you did the electronics for it, how you made the wings, for almost kind of a bit of sort of like cosplay, or sort of going along to a festival or making an outfit or a costume. But if anyone is interested in kind of doing things like that, then I'd by all means encourage them to reach out to us. But again, there's lots of places you can learn about this stuff online, and some really fantastic creative uses of technology and electronics. Make your own light up umbrella. one thing that I've just finished making. This is a bit Blue Peter, I'm afraid. I've just finished making this, which is a little Zoom mute button. So I can plug this into the computer, and then I can press this, and it'll mute me, and then unmute me. I'm going to try it out. I mean, obviously, it won't work doing it
It's
live.
a live demonstration.
This is a live demonstration.
Yeah, worked.
Yes, it worked.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
does.
Well, yeah. Well, the sign came up anyway, so
It
yeah.
doesn't show very clearly in Zoom, but that you in YouTube, but you definitely muted yourself in Zoom. There's no question about it.
I'll unplug that now. But yeah, so there's lots of little quirky things.
Big red button like that looks as though it might have far more disastrous implications than simply muting yourself. But there we are.
But I think a fantastic use of potentially assistive technology as well, because that costed that. The cost of that is about maybe £12-13 in total. Takes maybe an hour and a half to kind of set up and make if you haven't done it before. Anyone could make that. And all it's doing is really, when I press the button, it's pressing Control Shift and A as if it's like a little keyboard. But you could get it to trigger something else. You could have one which would copy and one which would paste. You could have it do whatever you wanted to.
Yeah.
So
what about things in the home, like opening doors or answering phones or stuff like that? Can they be done?
Definitely. Another great website is instructables.com, which has lots of, it's almost like a maker community, and you can go on there and it's got all of these weird and wacky projects that people have made, and sort of all these kind of life hacks to kind of solve problems. So if anyone's interested in kind of thinking, is there a machine or is there something that I could make to kind of sort of solve that problem, I'd always say have a look on Instructables, or if not Adafruit. But things like that are definitely possible. I mean, even on a really simple level, you can buy something called a SwitchBot, which is about £20, and you can hook it up to things like Alexa. And all it is it's just a tiny little white box, and then it's just got like almost like a little kind of sort of plastic finger, and then you can just say, Alexa, turn on the SwitchBot. And you just watch this little white box, and this little plastic finger just kind of pops out and presses the button for you. So you could just take something like a SwitchBot and stick it on your phone, for example. And when your phone rings, you could just say, Alexa, activate SwitchBot, or Alexa, turn on the phone, and it would kind of sort of do it for you. So all of these things are possible. It's just breaking it down into sort of simple steps. Maybe speaking to the right people about it, or doing some research online.
Yeah, I've got an Alexa app. I've got an Echo at home, and I've got a Dot, and I've got a Dot here for my mum as well. And I was telling Sweyn this some months ago. She was a little bit aggrieved when her the lady who comes in to give her some help during the week said to her, "Oh, you can turn the radio on, or you can do other things that you can do with an Alexa." And my mother turned around to me and said, you never told me that. And I said, well, I did tell you, but you weren't ready for doing that at the time. And even now, I can be in the TV room which is where it is, and I say to Alexa, what's the weather like, and or turn the radio on or something. My mother goes, what's that? So she's still not used to the idea of, and I think it can feel a bit weird, because she lives on her own, and suddenly there's this other voice in the room, that's not one of her children or her friend or whatever, so it can be a bit disconcerting, to say the least. So how do you, can you change the voice on it to sound more familiar, to have a different accent, whatever? Because it's the Alexa, which is an English accent, I think.
I believe you can change Alexa's voice and accents. I know with Siri you definitely can, and they've got different sort of for sort of different English speaking countries around the world, so you can kind of get a more sort of familiar accent, and it does pick up better on your own accent as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure there must be one for.
I might look into that for Irish accents. Yeah, I think that would be a winner some places.
Yeah, but Alexa's. Amazon have got a huge selection of products you can buy now for their voice assistant, but you can even get these little kind of Echo shows which have screens on them. you can use. So, for example, you could potentially have one in your house, one in your mum's house, one in a family member's house, and then you can just say something like, Alexa, drop in on mum, drop in on this person, and provided they are sort of a verified person, it just allows you to kind of drop in on that screen automatically, sort of like an instant video call, but without having to sort of approve it. So if you're not around, that might be that might be quite a nice way to kind of stay in touch.
Can you do that with the Alexa, the Dot and the Echo as it is now, just as a voice?
You can do it as a voice, yes. So you just say drop in, and then I think if you go onto the app on your phone, there's you can add certain contacts on there or the devices if they're inside your sort of group.
Yeah.
And then
I think I'll look into that because I think that'd be quite nice. Yeah. Because mum loves her WhatsApp video calls, which me and my siblings do with her nearly every day. But just a casual, how we use sort of would be nice to be able to do, I think, for lots of people. Sweyn, are you a big user of Alexa or any of those voice assistants?
The only I'm terrible. I never seem to use any of these things that we feature on the program. I have a Facebook portal which has some capacity for that, but I've not really experimented very much with it. I use the portal mainly for listening to radio programs I've missed.
Yeah, can be handy. Are you familiar with Portal, Ben? We both bought one, Sweyn and I, for research purposes for the show, but we haven't really taken them very far.
I'm quite interested in the portal. I haven't had a go with one. Does it connect up to your TV? Is it?
It depends on the device you got. Sweyn has one, yeah.
I know I've done a video call with some friends who have got the portal, and it kind of sort of follows you around the room, doesn't it? Sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully.
Yes.
But I am quite interested in the idea of one that sort of plugs into your TV, because I think sort of if you're going to have a call with someone, the TV is generally the biggest screen that you've got in your house. And if you're speaking with multiple people, it makes sense that you would probably do it in there instead of maybe bringing in a small tablet or a laptop or kind of a monitor. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the Facebook portal. So it might be something I have to invest in my household.
I have to do more experimentation quite soon. Zoom has arrived on the Portal TV at last, so I'll be maybe more motivated to give it a go.
Yeah, I've only got the like this tablet-sized portal, but I have successfully done WhatsApp video calls on it, and it's been quite good. And it has followed us around the room, so that has worked. John Popham was very keen on the idea of it because it was kind of a more familiar layout, I think, for a lot of people. We have had other devices on the show, Cradle and Como. I think were two of the ones that we looked at very early shows that we did last year. So yeah, but we're interested in any of those kind of things that help people be connected, really. And as we talked about on the show last week, we are kind of embracing a bigger idea of digital inclusion, that it doesn't have to be you that has the device. As long as you're connected to somebody who has a device, then you might consider yourself to be digitally included in the way that you want to be. We talked about specifically about shopping. If you have access to the internet and your friend comes to you to say, can you buy this for me, and via the internet, that for them is inclusion. They have a choice over how they want to get their whatever they are ordering, and you can help them with that. So
absolutely, but we have to remember that as this technological world of ours kind of surges forwards and becomes part of our into every section of our everyday lives. We have to accept that some people either are not going to opt into that or can't opt into that, and we should always be conscious of making sure that we are inclusive for everyone. No matter what that is. That's one thing that I learned, from my days as a money advisor and as a debt advisor. that, we can't assume that everyone can apply for the benefits through an online website. We need a paper form for some people. We need it in a different variety of formats. We can't just have we can't just have advice over the telephone. We also need face-to-face advice because it doesn't suit everyone.
Yeah.
We've always got to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, looking back now, are there other technology hacks that you think? Well, you obviously did help the money advice service very much with your dashboard. Do you still think of hacks that could help people now, who are, need that kind of help?
I suppose, yes. I suppose I'm focusing more on kind of hacks where we can kind of make teachers' lives easier within the college at the moment, as that's kind of our sort of primary focus. With this emerging technologies project, we obviously want to engage with everyone, but given that at least the last few months we haven't been able to kind of get out and about or have people into the Fab Lab, so we've had to focus on obviously kind of our own college community. So a lot of what we've been looking at is kind of ways with existing emerging technologies that might be able to kind of make teachers' lives easier or kind of streamline some of their processes. Pauline will know from the Tech Tuesdays show that we run once a month for teachers anywhere within the country or internationally for that matter. We last month we looked at voice control and voice assistance, and how one way for teachers to give feedback that might be more effective or more efficient with their time is to maybe sort of do an audio recording of their voice. And I mean, I've got an example here because I was just doing some recording earlier this morning. There's a company called Quicker, and the idea is that you print out these sort of little QR codes onto stickers, and then you scan it with your phone, and it takes you to a website with a unique link where you can record your voice, and then you give your student these codes, and they scan the code with their phone, and then they can hear your audio recording. But that could potentially be a lot quicker than you having to write all of that down or type it up, or potentially give your feedback to the student just by saying it to them and then having to write it down and follow up on it. So that's one of the ways that we've been having a look at to sort of streamline processes, improve back office things. This month we're going to be focusing at Tech Tuesdays. We're going to be focusing more on artificial intelligence and maybe seeing how teachers could use artificial intelligence to maybe automatically mark some work for students to kind of save time there. With Internet of Things, we're also looking at ways we might be able to kind of connect things up. So maybe you've got something in one program and then you've got something in another program, and historically you've had to kind of move it from program to program on your computer, and it's been quite time consuming. But with the Internet of Things, we might be able to kind of link those up together. So maybe having like a calendar booking system for teachers where you've got a web link where you can go on and you can book an appointment with someone. So maybe you're another member of staff or a teacher and you want to book an appointment with a teacher, or you're a student and you want to book an appointment with your teacher. Instead of emailing them and going, when are you free? Oh, free on this day at this time. And, you've got this back and forth. It takes ages to work out when you're free. You can just have a portal which connects up to your calendar automatically. You can see when your teacher's available. You can book a slot in. And as soon as you booked a slot in, it already sorts out the Zoom link or the Teams link or anything else for you. And it's very quick and it's very efficient. So those are some of the things that we've kind of been, the things that we've been kind of looking at in terms of quick tech hacks to help kind of teachers save time, because it's those sort of things that, bite into teachers' weekends and, time after work. So
do you get teachers from the West Midlands attending, or from further afield than that? Or?
So the one we ran last month was our third Tech Tuesdays. Obviously, this month will be our fourth. It's almost been a bit kind of it's almost been a bit mad. I mean, we've had such rave reviews of Tech Tuesdays. I almost can't believe it. But we've had our first one in January. We had I think over 60 people attend from inside the college, but also teachers and lecturers kind of within the West Midlands. The last session we had a similar number attending. I think we even had maybe a teacher from Mexico attend as well. So I don't know how they found out about us, presumably on Eventbrite.
Yes, if you search for Tech Tuesdays Sandwell, the Eventbrite
yes.
Eventbrite page for your Tech Tuesdays is near the top. So if there are any teachers interested in that, then that's where to go.
Yeah, I'd encourage anyone to attend. We really try and kind of set it at a level where it's technology that's open and available to everyone. You know, it's either free or it's very cheap to kind of access. It's easy to use, and it's going to, you know, save you some time or kind of make things easier for you. But yeah, anyone's more than welcome to attend, whether they're a teacher or whether they just kind of work with people, support people in some form of capacity. I'm sure you'd find it useful.
Yeah, I found it very interesting and relatable, and that's you know, that's the thing. Not everybody can teach you know, people new stuff, especially if the people they're teaching don't have the background that you have, and the patience that you need, and the ability to break things down, as you've said, Ben, to, you know, kind of small steps so it doesn't scare people away. And then, of course, being able to come back and ask you questions afterwards is very important. Yeah, certainly we can relate to that. We're going to try and cover a few more stories from our general pickup, Ben, before we finish the show. If people do want to contact you online, we've said the Fab Lab is on Instagram. Is that the best place at the moment to find you?
If you want to keep up to date with any of our work, probably Instagram is our best place at the moment. We're currently in the process of launching a new website, so keep your eyes peeled. At the moment, if you go to fablabwestmidlands.co.uk, you won't find anything, but we're hoping that will change shortly. But if anyone has any questions or wants to kind of maybe try out the Fab Lab, have a visit once we're able to reopen, or maybe would like to, you know, have a chat with us about how you might be able to kind of use these technologies within your world, drop us an email, fablab, one word or lowercase, at sandwell.ac.uk.
Right. That's really good. I'm sure we will come back to that, because I think voice assistants and VR and AI will just you know, continue to grow and change and offer opportunities to the people we want to be in touch with. Okay, so the first story that other story that we came across in our general lookings for the last week, obviously, sadly, Prince Philip has died, but we wanted to celebrate the fact that he was forward-looking, and the story we came across was from Town and Country magazine, where there's 7 surprising facts about Prince Philip, and number 4 in the series was about him being forward-thinking. And in The Crown, which is a television series about the Queen's life, Prince Philip is in favour of his wife's coronation being televised in 1953. And Caroline Harris, who teaches history at the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies and who's been examining royals for 10 years, said the Prince was interested in technology and modernising the monarchy. And people around the world were able to engage with the coronation, and it did wonders for the TV industry. Apparently, many people bought their first TV just to watch it, so that was a great achievement. And up to lately, the article went on to say Prince Philip still favoured technology advancement. Only in February of this year, he toured Vantage Power, which designs hybrid bus engines, and reminded them that he drove one of the first electric cars in the 1960s. So well done to the royal family for supporting technology, and we send them our condolences for their loss. The next story was about again, our libraries. We keep coming back to libraries, but they are such great places for digital inclusion. And this was the one about how the New York Public Library is equipping artists with technology for free as the pandemic shutdown continues. The library has developed tech kits for performing artists, available to check out for any cardholder for the New York Public Libraries who are 18 or older. And the contents of this tech kit include an iPad Pro with cellular data and a suite of creation-oriented apps, a USB microphone, wireless headphones, a ring light, and a phone tripod stand, all of which, of course, we have in our own studios to some extent, more or less.
Of course we do.
Those with musical pursuits can also request a 32-key MIDI keyboard. Cardholders can reserve kits online and pick them up in various locations in the Bronx, Manhattan, and Staten Island. And the library crafted the program to the guidance of Dance NYC's COVID-19 impact survey. And one finding was that there was an increased need for technology and communication resources in the wake of the pandemic. And actually, another recent study showed that 87% of performers at high school and college levels had created content for social platforms, and 77% participated in digital showcases in the wake of the pandemic. I'm not sure what the stats are like on that in the UK, but I would estimate that there'll be a lot more creative stuff made since the pandemic, as we just know from generally looking around the internet. Another finding from New York was that artists in Black, minority and people of color, indigenous groups, immigrant, disabled and older communities were disproportionately impacted by a lack of such resources. So we would hope that resources like that from New York Public Libraries would encourage more people to take part. Creativity, have either of you done anything creative online since the pandemic like that? Singing, dancing, performing? Sweyn, are you a secret performer of some sort?
I've been aware. I sing in choirs sometimes when we're allowed to meet. And I have looked at some of these record your own track type things. There was a lovely charity Christmas album was released locally by local groups. I think it was an awful lot more work to get it all recorded than the musicians were expecting, but it was finally released, so that was a good thing.
And Ben, are you a performer?
Not particularly. I don't think my creative skills lie there. I'm afraid. But I did spend quite a lot of time after the pandemic hit, when I took a few months out, sort of making things. So I did quite a bit with pottery and played around with some art, and obviously some making as well. I was making beer and wine for a while as well. So
oh wow,
yeah.
Nice to hear. Yep. Okay, and then we come on to a story from Bristol, and by Tom Burnett, who's the Policy and Information Officer at VOSCR, which is the local Council of Voluntary Organisations. And the headline was, "How much progress has been made to reduce Bristol's digital divide?" And they refer to the national figures which we have. At the start of the third lockdown, Ofcom estimated that up to 1.8 million school children in the UK had no access to a tablet, laptop or desktop computer. And locally in Bristol, research undertaken by Knowle West Media Centre found that 47% of the children in the 300 family surveys did not have the right access to do their schoolwork, so were likely to fall behind their peers. And research by Black Southwest Network, VOSCR and Locality in the area found that after mental health, digital exclusion was the biggest lockdown concern. So Bristol City Council is in the process of recycling and repurposing 3,600 laptops, which includes cleaning, loading Windows 10 packages on all devices and free tutorials. And their focus is on young people not in education, employment or training, vulnerable adults, including adults with learning difficulties, parents with 2-year-olds in the most deprived areas, adults who cannot access or do not have the means to have equipment, unemployed who cannot access learning work, socially isolated adults and the elderly. And they say what they've learned from the past 12 months is that while some have benefited from donated laptops and cheaper or free Wi-Fi, there are a number of issues, including intelligence about digital exclusion being severely lacking. I think we can reflect that from around the country. Where exactly is the need? What works best for struggling families? And are the signposts clearly enough? The second point on this list is, although internet access is now recognised as an essential basic need, supply is provided by the free market, so there's no central agency to coordinate support. And in the pandemic, this has meant a less efficient service for those in need. And the third point is huge pressure on organisations such as DigiLocal, the local Bristol organisation, which has no central funding in place and operates with a small team of volunteers. So Bristol has recognised the need for a more joined up approach and improved connectivity, including access to ICT. So it's part of the City Council's One City programme. They have a newly formed One City Digital Board, including VOSCR, which will investigate all areas of digital inclusion, from hardware to software, safeguarding to connectivity. So it's good to hear that's happening, as it is in so many other cities around the UK. And the more we can do to support that kind of development, the better. But as you say, Ben, including ensuring that people who don't want to use those means also have other ways of contacting and getting the services that they need. We'll cover just one more story, I
One more
think.
story, yes.
Sweyn. This is from the UK Energy Networks, doing research into analysis of digital exclusion of energy customers in order to develop an inclusive communications framework. Recognizing that many organizations are relying on digital means for services, messaging, notifications, and engagement with their customers, which they recognize has led to a digital divide, and those who are digitally excluded or disadvantaged due to lack of access to opportunities, knowledge, goods, and services such as energy, comparison, and switching sites. We have talked about money on the show today, but also previous times. If people don't have access to the internet, how can they possibly compare prices for what they're getting? So this Energy Networks group is looking for a research project to provide a clear understanding of the issue of digital exclusion for energy customers, including those in vulnerable or disadvantaged situations. They want to identify and understand the combination of circumstances that can affect engagement, i.e. the impacts on mental health posed by a stranger knocking at the door or letters being received and ignored, and the development of a framework for organizations to do all they can to reach those digitally excluded. So that sounds like a really useful piece of research that probably has wider application to other sectors as well. So we hope that they get somebody who can do that research for them. Okay, I think we're probably just over the time, so we'll leave any extra stories to next time. But thanks again to Ben for coming on the show. We're really impressed with all the opportunities that you're offering to people in Sandwell and wider with your Tech Tuesdays events. I'll certainly be attending more of those. We're just so happy to be able to do things online and to bring these things to other people. If anybody has a query for us, we are available by email, drtechshow@gmail.com if you want to email us, or put comments into the YouTube show or on Hope Radio in South Birmingham on Tuesdays when this show is repeated, and we hope to come back to you at some future stage. So thanks again, and sign off for now. Have a great week.
Have a great week.